Hi, everyone, and welcome to week 10 in Writing 210. Here is what's on tap for this week. So we will be doing two things in class on Wednesday. The first is completing style quiz number 2, which is all focused on schemes and tropes. And we will also be talking about writing with imagery and also with images. So to prepare for class on Wednesday, there's a few things that I'd encourage you to do. The first, study for style quiz number 2. So this will be a format that's very similar to the first style quiz. It'll be based only on schemes and tropes. So the last two sections of the style glossary that we built out over the last couple of weeks. So use that as your primary study guide, but you can also refer back to class slides and the readings from Holcomb and Killingsworth. In addition to preparing for the quiz, I'd like you to read two things. The first is the sample style experiment and analysis that's posted in the week 10 folder. This is a sample that a previous student completed in my Writing 210 class last winter. And it's a great example of how to approach the analytical piece of the style experiment, which, as you know, will be due at the end of this week on Sunday. And then finally, I'd like you to read Performing Prose, Chapter 8, which is all about writing with images and focused on that kind of core element, which is what we'll be discussing in class after the quiz. So the key concepts for this week to pay attention to are writing with imagery. And so that's sort of including descriptive imagistic language in our text itself, but then also thinking about writing with and through images. So when we're talking about writing with imagery, we're really thinking about the way that we can use language to create images in the reader's mind. And the reason this is so powerful is because images can engage all 5 of the senses of the readers, and it invites the readers into the text, and it invites them to participate in what it is that you're describing. Imagery can also advance the plot, it can shift the tone, or it can intensify the action, depending on what you're trying to describe. The imagery can also provide a sort of central focal point with short vignettes. So you can kind of create short scenes that convey a lot of information about what it is that you're reporting on or the story that the characters are experiencing. And finally, it adds vividness to examples or illustrations. So it just adds a way for readers to see and to experience what it is that you're trying to convey through your text. So it's the idea of showing rather than telling, and writing with imagery is one of your key ways of doing that. So there's an example from the text that I think is really excellent that kind of illustrates all of the different components that Holcomb and Killingsworth talk about in this chapter. So this is a passage that they quoted on page 143, and it reads, "You can brick up your heart as stout and tight and hard and cold and impregnable as you possibly can, and down it comes in an instant, felled by a woman's second glance, a child's apple breath, the shatter of glass in the road, the words, 'I have something to tell you,' a cat with a broken spine dragging itself to the forest to die, the brush of your mother's papery ancient hand in the thicket of your hair, the memory of your father's voice early in the morning, echoing from the kitchen where he is making pancakes for his children." So that's just a perfect example of how the author is using all of the senses, sight, sound, smell, touch, to really grab the reader's attention and to evoke this idea that as much as you try to protect yourself, these small little moments of human life, of human sensing, can kind of break down all of our barriers. And so it's a perfect example of how imagery can convey something in a much more powerful way than simply just saying, we can build barriers around our heart, but things happen and it breaks down, right? That's a much more simplistic way of saying the same thing. The images convey a lot more information. So in addition to writing with imagery, we're also thinking about using images to incorporate them into our writing. And so when we're thinking about that, we're really talking about ways that images can add information, meaning, or context to a piece of writing. Again, images can engage the reader's senses and imagination. And some of the really good examples of these could be things like graphic novels. So this is, comics or graphic novels or kind of illustrated texts that add meaning and context to the story and sort of draw the reader in to experience what's happening on the page. Also, examples like photojournalism. So this is a time-lapse photo of doctors putting together the COVID-19 vaccine. And so it kind of creates a really compelling kind of image that draws us in. So the kind of images that are connected with news stories help us experience what is happening on the ground, wherever the ground may be, in a way that is much more powerful than words alone can convey. We've also got things like infographics where you use icons or small charts, or you play with font size and font type and color to communicate information in a really clear and digestible way for readers. And then finally, we've got just simply including graphs and charts into a report. So this is a report that I wrote in my job as a first-year writing director here at Grand Valley. And I used a chart and also graphs to illustrate responses to an assessment that we did. And so I could have written this all out in a narrative, but instead I chose to use graphs because that can make a more powerful impact for readers. It helps them digest and take in the information much more quickly. So we're going to talk more in class about writing with imagery and writing with images. But to prepare for class on Wednesday, there's a few things I'd like you to think about as you read. So as you're reading Holcomb and Killingsworth, think about what new insights you have about writing with imagery after reading the chapter, and then also think about how this applies to your own writing. So when do you incorporate imagery into your writing, and why do you use it? What are the rhetorical reasons why you choose to write with imagery? And then as you're reading Ian Out's sample style experiment and analysis, I'd really like you to pay attention to the choices that they made in their writing. So what did you notice about how Ian organized their analysis? And what did Ian do that you might be able to do in your own style experiment analysis? And so just as another reminder, your style experiment analysis, so the last piece of the style experiment, is due this Sunday, November 5th by midnight. So we'll talk about the sample in class, we'll talk about images in class, and we'll cover all of this. But if you have questions in the meantime, don't hesitate to let me know. Otherwise, I hope you have a great start to your week, and I will see you all on Wednesday. Bye.